I'm Peter Levine, the director of the Defense Management Institute, and we're here today as a part of a series of interviews of individuals who have made significant contributions to improving the management of the Department of Defense. Today, I'm speaking with Robert Shea, who has been working to improve government management for more than 25 years, most prominently by serving as Associate Director of the Office of Management and Budget, responsible for performance management and related issues. Previously, Mr. Shea handled government management issues for both the Senate Committee on Governmental Affairs and the House Committee on Government Reform. After completing his government career, Mr. Shea handled the public policy portfolio for Grant Thornton and then moved to Gov Navigators, where he is currently the CEO. Mr. Shea has also served as chairman of the board of directors of the National Academy of Public Administration. Mr. Shea, welcome, and we're glad to have you here.
So the jurisdiction of a committee is divided among its staff. You have a portfolio of issues that you're obligated to cover, and you're the expert. The member, the chair, has to possess at least a cursory knowledge of all of the issues under the jurisdiction of the committee. They have staff that are required to have deeper expertise. But there is definitely a give and take. And with Senator Thompson, for instance, he would get a stream of ideas about what to pursue. And if you were lucky enough, he would want to dig deeper, either legislatively or from an oversight perspective on a specific issue. Improper payments was an example where GAO had uncovered a significant amount of improper payments. And so the chairman put out a statement, and we began a long series of legislative efforts to try and get a handle on increasing waste in government. That they're human beings, that there's not an invisible force preventing you from crossing the wide divide between the executive branch and the legislative branch. I learned at OMB that the most productive path to collaboration with the legislative branch was not through the Legislative Affairs Office at OMB. Those are people whose middle name is No, and you're talking about people with whom I had deep relationships on a bipartisan basis. And so if to put barriers up between the productivity you could gain with those relationships is just it disadvantages the president. Sure. I mean, there are lots of examples. One of the easiest to communicate is that before Bush was elected, agencies were obligated to produce audited financial statements 6 months after the end of the fiscal year. We accelerated that to 45 days, and heads exploded all over the financial management community. That's impossible. But within about a year and a half or 2 years, all but one or two agencies, Department of Defense among them, was able to get clean opinions on their financial statements within that period of time. And the theory was, if you gave agencies so much time to produce these financial statements, they were doing it manually. They weren't using systems to produce the statements. They were cobbling them together using heroic efforts. So this sort of was intended to break that. So when we were creating the Department of Homeland Security, we saw it as an opportunity to start fresh in a lot of arenas, and one of them was personnel. So we wanted to introduce a lot of flexibility for that department when it was created. Secretary Rumsfeld, then Deputy Secretary England, were a little jealous, it would seem, of that. And so they took it as an opportunity to propose similar flexibilities for civilian personnel at the Department of Defense. The government's personnel system doesn't serve it well. It is difficult to recruit and retain talent to perform. You know, the public sector doesn't get the same level of pay as they would get if they were working in the private sector. So you're already handicapped from that perspective. But putting up hurdles in the hiring process, making it difficult to hold poor performers accountable doesn't help you. So there's a long-standing desire to break free from those shackles and do a better job recruiting and retaining and rewarding high performers.
The NSPS and the DHS personnel systems were intended essentially to break free of the entirety of the civil service system in many ways. I mean, there were some aspects that were retained, and certainly pension systems, things like that were retained. But I personally was always more in favor of targeted reform, where you could say, this is my problem and I want to address it. There are reasons why the administration wanted a broader approach, but I wonder whether you could identify the 2 or 3 things that you would change in the existing civilian personnel system if you had the chance to do that. So what would you do if you could target something as specific areas where we could write a new system?
Right. I think in hiring, that would be a critical one. To simplify the hiring process, to limit the favoritism that is built into the system, because you really want to produce the highest quality candidate. And if you show favoritism to one population over another, it diminishes the quality of the candidates you can consider. I would limit the avenues of appeal individuals have when they're being disciplined for either poor performance or bad behavior, so that you can fire those individuals more easily. The most common feedback you get as the result of the annual Federal Employee Viewpoint survey of federal employees, is that organizations don't adequately hold poor performers accountable. So that's the second thing. And the third thing has got to be pay or culture. You've got to produce an environment that makes it more likely that individuals are going to stay in their jobs. We're competing with the private sector for talent. Technology is evolving at such a speed that you really do want to, if we, by the grace of God, hire somebody who's able to leverage these tools, and they find themselves in an environment where they can't really use them to the best advantage, they're going to go to an organization where they can. So you really do need to change the culture and the environment in which they're operating. I would encourage leaning heavily on their humility. There is great wisdom, and if you can tap into that, you've landed in your position because of your experience and expertise, but you don't have all that you need to be successful. So tap into the reservoirs of other expertise and experience that you need to be successful.